And the only reason that there's a vacancy and or a deficiency in their heart today at 40 is because you weren't present at 10.
Yeah. You guys are contending for no counterfeit when it comes to a place for family.
We began to realize, wait, I threw devices in front of my children because we needed some silence. So the home was quiet, but at the same time, there was bondage and my child was being tossed around by the enemy. Now your home might be a bit louder and a bit more chaotic, but it's freedom. So the Lord told me the sound of chaos to you is the sound of freedom to me.
I have never seen a family that embraces awkward for the sake of purity like you guys.
The enemy is the king of perversion.
Yeah.
So I had to grow up and get a backbone and stop walking around like nervous and afraid and awkward. Oh my gosh, what's my kid looking at? I had to get knowledgeable about it. It's like an actual agenda where the enemy wants to take out the next generation.
Yeah. And this podcast is about to get PG-13 real fast. Hey, welcome to the No Counterfeit podcast. I'm Keenan. This is my wife, Beth. And today we have the ridiculous privilege of getting to sit down with a couple who has molded us, shaped us, inspired us, anointed us inside of only a few months.
No pressure.
Man.
Inside of only a few months, you guys have become kind of the archetype for us when it comes to family. And with all that being said, allow us to introduce you to the Koulianos family. Come on, we've got Theo and Rachel on the pod today. We absolutely love you guys. And you guys are going to find out. Beth and I are raving fans.
We are.
I mean, honestly, we probably have a little bit of an addiction to the Koulianos family.
The Keenan leech.
I am a leech. I have called myself a leech. And I'm here to just harvest all that I can.
You guys.
Well, we love y'all too. And you guys, again, this is not hyperbolic. This is not just me talking. You guys have, we have incredible family in Texas. Yeah. But when it comes to being in Tennessee and just some of the things that you guys have adopted, some of the mindsets, the mantras, the mottos that you guys live by have quickly become the standard in our home. And we'll unpack that as we go. But you guys are contending for no counterfeit when it comes to a place for family. When it comes to the place of the family, there's nobody I know who is as intentional and absolutely killing it like you guys are. So if you guys could just briefly introduce yourselves and then let's kind of get rolling into the vision of a place for family, what all you guys are doing. Why has this become so important to you guys? Maybe at one point you guys dabbled in counterfeit family. Why has this become so important to the two of you?
You want to go?
You want to start?
Yeah. Go ahead. You can.
No, you start.
All right. First of all, thank you guys for having us. And everything that you said is really overwhelming. But you guys are really easy to love. Yes, and so sometimes you have people in your life where it's a bit more difficult. It kind of just felt natural. Felt like we had known you guys for a really long time, where those are the moments where you recognize the Lord's in this. Yeah. And so we love you guys dearly. We love August.
In the future, maybe.
Yes.
Since we were just talking about it.
Yeah. But we really do. We love you guys. And with the same intentionality that you guys have obviously expressed, we are huge fans of you guys as well. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing that we have seen in you, and I'm going to answer your question after, but the biggest thing that we've seen within the two of you is at your stage in the journey. You've been walking with Jesus for a long time. I think sometimes people just assume just because the numerics associated to your age, you kind of this is just the infancy stages of, right? But it's not. You've been raised in ministry family. Rachel's raised in a ministry family. I wasn't raised in a ministry family. So at times I had an idea of this is exactly what ministry should look like based upon my lack of understanding as to what all goes into making a healthy, successful ministry. Mm-hmm. Rach had a viewpoint that she saw the great things that ministry provided, but then she also saw the unfortunate things that came with it as well. And so when we decided to step into marriage, I had an idea of what life should look like. She had an idea of what life should look like, and the two just did not blend.
Okay, yeah.
We were just not set up for success in the beginning. So a place for family, in essence, came as a result of us not knowing how to prioritize family. Mm-hmm. So the Lord would say, hey, listen, I want you to focus on something. I'm going to give you guys a ministry. And in the process of us being handed this ministry to steward, We realized the deficiencies. We realized the strengths, the weaknesses, all of it. Unfortunately, we had to learn how to do the right things by doing the wrong things. Pain became a teacher. I went to college for ministry. I was taught how to be great outside of my home. No one taught me how to be a good husband and father. And therefore, she got the scraps. She didn't get the best. Neither did the kids. And that also led us to this place of, wait, pain doesn't have to be a teacher. If someone would have shown me exactly what to do and how to do it, then I wouldn't have had to hurt the people I love.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, Lord, we're asking that you would give us all that you need to give us so that we can hand others what is necessary to see their families thrive.
Wow.
That's where Place for Family came. It's been a 20-year journey. We've been married 20 years. But we feel like we've finally tapped into what we were created for, what we were sent to the earth to do, which is to love the person in front of us, to love his presence, and then to obviously love our families the best we know how.
Yeah,
My
that's
Lord.
really good. Yeah, I grew up pretty jaded from ministry. My parents were wonderful, but I just didn't see a lot of same thing at home as I saw maybe externally or on the stage. And so as a young girl, I just, for whatever reason, I had this innate thing inside of me that I had a hunger for justice in the family. And so I think, when I met Theo, he was really, really ministry driven, wanted to be successful, wanted to drive and just be very, just to go after it. And I was like, well, that's not me. So maybe you should, marry one of my cousins or something. And so we definitely had a little bit of a rough start, headbutting,
No comment.
like a little, talk about the reality of like what we walked through as newlyweds. Just the first, I would say probably 7 years was just very rough for us. No one around us, nobody around us taught us how to do family well. It was just ministry. And if you were not okay or you were struggling, you just put on a face and you kind of keep the show going in essence. And so for me, I just never functioned well in that. And I never was intended. I don't think anybody was, but me especially, I just didn't function well in that. And so what it caused was a breakdown in me over the years. And I just began to crumble from the weight of the ministry stuff that we were doing and the way we were running. And so I found myself deep in depression. At a certain stage of life, we had taken over a church where one of our family members had unfortunately had an affair. And we were young and we didn't know what to do with it. We couldn't wrap our mind around how that can happen and the presence of the Lord can be tangible and ugly things like that can happen. And so, it was only Jesus causing us to lose everything, stripping us of everything through brokenness that has given us a passion for family. And honestly, if it weren't for the grace of God, we would just be another statistic. I truly believe that. So I'm thankful that, he removed what we thought we wanted, which was ministry for a while, stage ministry, those kinds of things. And he just brought us to himself as a family. And we were very broken and we had to be rebuilt. We felt like he stripped us of everything and said, I want to teach you from a foundational standpoint what it means to love me, to tend to the heart of me as your father and as, the lover and us as bride, and then drew us to each other to gather around the table and just to love him and in the hidden place with nobody watching. And that for us was the most probably impacting thing we've ever walked through.
Yeah, and I think the impact of that is something obviously that we want to share with everyone else.
Absolutely.
Because you really find your purpose when you can clearly understand the greatest privilege we have is to steward our homes. And many of us are trying to find purpose outside the four walls of our house. And unfortunately, that's not where it's to be found.
No.
And so we can do great things for God. We need to do great things for God, especially in this hour. But you want to come from his presence, having received something in private that you can give the world in public. The only reason Jesus had something to give us is because it's where he came from.
Yeah.
Right? So he said, freely I've given you this. Obviously you can receive it. Freely you shall give, all that.
Yeah.
But the fact is that he obtained something somewhere. And it wasn't in the place of public. It was in the place of secret. And then whatever he acquired in the place of secret, he was able to distribute in the place of public. And so if we can begin to cultivate his presence in our homes, raising children that know who he is, all of those things, then you're going to find an incredible purpose and pleasure attached to your life.
Absolutely. One of the things that was incredible. But one of the things Beth and I talk about a lot, and you see that like a lot of the time when we're talking about it's in ministry, you see discrepancies like in a ministry and you go, well, it starts at the top, right? A lot of like where you see staff issues or culture issues. It's like, well, you can't really get mad at that because it's being allowed at the top. And one of the first comments I remember making about you, I was laying in bed. We were here just on a trip that first trip where we met you guys. We got to spend time with you. And again, I've told you this to your face. I went into like our first little like breakfast with William kind of being like, hey, I want to introduce you to Theo. I think this is an important relationship. And I was kind of like, that's great. I'd love to meet Theo, but don't pawn me off.
We were late because we felt the same. We were like, what? We don't, like, who are these people?
And just being completely transparent, I was kind of like, that's great. Like, I'd love to meet him, but don't pawn me off on him. Don't make like me like, hey, you can just hang with Theo.
Yeah.
After I met you, I was like,
and the boys,
the two of y'all, I was like, all we want to do is be with the So I was that night we got to hang out with y'all. Y'all were so kind, invited us to come just walk around downtown Franklin with you. We went to this like little place where we wrote prayers in this little chapel and it was incredible. And I remember I got to our little like Airbnb that we had, and I was laying in bed, and I just like for real, I started to cry. I started weeping. And Beth was kind of like looking at me like, what in the world is going on with you? And I was like, I for real.
In those exact words.
Probably.
Brutal.
But I told Beth, I said, I for real feel like I spent time with Jesus today physically. Like being around you, specifically for me, it was Theo.
Yeah.
Being around Theo, I was like, that has to be the closest I've ever felt to like being like, like, not that you're Jesus, but like what it would be like.
But you know him.
No pressure.
To be, no. And the thing is it wasn't a fluke.
Yeah.
I didn't come back the next time and be like, oh, okay, like that was just, I caught Theo on a good day. It has been consistent. And I literally was brought to tears. Like the closest thing I could liken it to, and I told Beth this, was I was like, he's like Jesus on The Chosen. To me, the way that Jonathan Rumi depicts Jesus in the series The Chosen is probably the best adaptation of Jesus anyone has ever done. I feel like he fully encompasses, as best as I can see, that fully man, fully God. He's got divinity on him, but he's tangible. He's approachable. He's funny. You know what I mean? He knows how to poke at you, but never cross that line to where he's hurting you or demeaning you. And that's what I felt with you. I was like, I've never felt that before. I've been around a lot of Christ-like people, but never been brought to tears at the end of a day of hanging out with them thinking, I think I just spent time with Jesus today. That was my true experience.
And all we were doing was walking around, being friends, watching you love your wife, love your kids, be a dad, and go do a return anthropology.
And
just a simple.
You guys knew nothing about us.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you were like, oh, Keenan's in ministry. There's a following. Let's be like, y'all knew nothing at that point.
I
and
went
even
home
like,
that night and I was like, if I knew he was this Instagram person, I probably would have been like, I'm okay.
Yeah, because like there's just all the negative stuff that comes.
But really actually touched me about you, specifically both of you. I was blown away. I think we felt the Lord in our relationship right away, but the purity and the way you took care of your son. And that's just something, you know, I'm not saying it's a fair thing to watch and assess, but for me, since we are so passionate about family, when I see someone young that is hands-on and very helpful with his wife, you just were such a hands-on dad with August that I was like, wow, there's something really special about this boy. Like he's not like walking around like he's it. And he's like, you know, once I saw that you did have an influence and you were kind of in an area where you're growing, obviously, I just was really touched by who you were on the inside, like when no one was watching. And
that means the world.
That really touched us both. So
that means the world. Yeah.
And Beth is obviously the best part of that. Now that I know.
I mean, we got to meet somebody the other day while we were out and about, and they were saying hi to Beth as well. And I was like, literally, so much of what people like are like, man, Keenan, this about you. I'm like, that's her. Like, that's all her influence.
Everything that you're saying in regards to like, oh, you know, you remind me. You know,
you remind me of Jesus.
That's what we're saying. He
doesn't
like
to
you don't want to say it, but it's the truth.
But the truth is that she has refused to allow me to be anything less than what the Lord's called me to.
Yeah.
And I actually told her last night, and I was thanking her last night, because sometimes I can be like, man, she does not like, she's relentless. She just doesn't
I wish
stop.
I could.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
But
Give me a break, woman.
But I look at like our home, I see who I am, I see my children, and there is no doubt in the world she is the greatest influence and the greatest instrument that the Lord has used to create me into becoming something that I never thought I could be, and especially for the kids. And when we look at our children, and you begin to see Christ-like characteristics come from them, and then you recognize, man, I didn't do that. And you can look at our wives and be like, hey, there's a reality there that, we might get the attention because of what we do, but they're in the shadows being used to mold and shape our family into the image of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think we have the greatest gifts that the Lord could ever give us in our wives who love the Lord and who refuse to settle for anything less than what God's called us to.
Oh man. Yeah. And
which it's easy to do. The thing is, it's easy for a wife. It's easier for a wife to almost say like, hey, this is my husband, and like almost like this is it. And I just got to figure out how to do life with that deficiency. The downside of it is that many of the things that she's asking me to make sure that I keep in front of me, certain things like if I tell the kids I'm going to do something, you better do it.
There's my wife. I mean, not our kids, but mainly just with her.
But think of this. It's like, I think one of the most stable attributes we can cling to with the Lord is the fact that whatever he says, he does.
Yep.
So the world cannot give us that, but there's a man who gives us that, and that anchors our soul. And without realizing it, in the beginning, I didn't know that I was presenting to my children who God was.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I just thought I need to be their father, provide for them, love them, go to their football games, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea until later in my journey of being a father, through her continually revealing to me, hey, you hold this title that the Lord has shared with you as father. Therefore, when they hear father, the first reference that they will associate who he is to is you.
Yes.
And so if you break your word, they will assume that he'll break his word.
Yeah.
And this isn't just something like, oh, it's just a characteristic, let's laugh it off. She's like, that's not a laughing matter. We have to make sure that we are clearly presenting who God is to our children.
Yes.
So that God can do what he wants us, not only for us to steward our children correctly, but what he desires for our children to do in the earth as well.
Absolutely. And I think, I know I can speak for both of us, your children are the fruit of your ministry. Why should anyone give attention to a place for family, let alone give their money, get behind the vision? Your boys are walking proof that you guys know how to put out what you talk about.
Yes.
Like, they are remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, Teddy is like sitting there journaling like modern Psalms.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
For real.
yeah, like what in the world?
Yeah.
Your the wounds on your back have become your priestly garment. Like,
Sometimes
what
when he talks, I'm like,
16-year-old says that?
Yeah.
I know.
how did
where
we
did
get
you
a
get that?
kid like that?
Out in the yard, in the backyard, just on his knees,
Yeah.
like seeking the Lord.
I have no
and
idea.
It just it's consistent. Like when I hear Caleb, he's 10 years old at the recording of this. He's 10 years old. When I hear him say the Lord, there's not like some little kids are like, yeah, God, and there's like a question mark on it. Like, I hope I'm saying the right thing. I mean, I talk to 30-year-olds who still do the same thing. When he says the Lord, there's a weight behind it. There's like he knows who he is talking about.
Yeah.
Like he's not second guessing. Am I saying everything just right? It's like, no, I know this person I'm talking about. And that has been directly deposited in him by the two of you.
Yeah.
My God, yeah.
I'm so thankful that the Lord placed our relationship when he did.
Yes.
Because we have an 11-month-old. Y'all have what, like 18, 19 months?
Levi.
Almost 2.
Okay. So
Yeah.
really close. So we're like looking at Teddy, looking at Henry, looking at Caleb, and we're like, how do we do that? And we're like, oh, thank God we get to watch and come alongside you
absolutely.
and watch you, even just with Levi, and watch them with August. And we're just
I mean,
kind of
he's
like,
with them right now.
same for me, double.
Yeah.
Like that's
They
how
are
we do it.
all in a room.
We're gonna do it like them.
Oh,
Man.
absolutely. Here, I would like to just kind of pivot for a second because I want to get like in the nitty gritty of what does this look like.
Yeah.
I learned a long time ago that a yes to one thing is automatically a no to everything else. So in order to say yes to your children, to the mandate on your family, and it not just be a slogan, there are a lot of family ministries out there, but I have rarely come in contact with a ministry that is based around the family that has the legitimacy that you guys have. A lot of times, like, y'all are trying, but like y'all are still like jacked up. I look at y'all and I'm like, you may say that you're in progress. I'm like, I feel like y'all have made it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, y'all been to the mountaintop.
Yeah.
What over, and I'd love for you to get really practical here. What over the years, whether it was a monetary gain, a position of prominence, influence, whatever it may be, connections, relationships, what have you had to say no to in order to continue to say yes to Rachel and yes to the boys, or you say yes to Theo and yes to the boys?
Well, I think it started with the Lord. So we would try to fit into places, and we would try to just be what people would tell us to be.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Theo has always been this, like what you're saying. I mean, he is a very gentle, like loving person. So he should be a pastor of a church. That's just what we were told. And so we found ourselves over the years trying to fit in to this group or to fit into this group. And somehow we just never quite fit. And I think there was a little bit of a lack of confidence and insecurity that didn't allow us to step up into leading something that God was wanting us to pioneer.
Yeah.
And so until the Lord allowed us to lose everything, I don't think we really valued what we value now.
Wow.
And so why we value family now, it is because we lost everything else. And so the Lord brought us to the lowest, most broken place where we had nothing but him and nothing but each other. And so it was almost like the Lord loved us enough to be like, you're not going to make this choice for yourself. And so I have to help you. Very similar to when Theo and I met, we both were not running after Jesus. And we don't tell our kids that. We don't recommend it at all. Run after the Lord, you'll find your spouse. But for us, it was a rescue situation where God probably saw, okay, these two need a little bit of support here. Let me capture them by rescuing them. And so that's what I really feel happened to us as a family. And when that happened, we found him, like what we're doing right now is not something that has been contrived or something that we have. This is the next cool thing.
Right.
This is just something we were doing in the privacy of our home.
Right.
Which brings the legitimacy to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have an archive of like literally, 20 years of doing
Yeah,
this?
this wasn't definitely like
Something we
an
wanted to
occupational
start.
pivot.
No.
You know what I mean? But some people do that. Some people are like, man, how am I going to keep up, especially like on the itinerant side of things?
Yeah, yeah.
Preaching, man, what's going to be my thing? This is their thing.
Yeah.
What's going to be my thing? Okay, let's make family our thing.
Right.
No one's doing it. Let's get ahead of it.
Well,
To be honest with
nothing
you,
in style about what
Yeah.
It's not a market that you're like, hey, it's not overly saturated.
right.
Let's
Yeah,
jump
yeah.
in there.
And
We can be
family
the
wasn't
people.
Cool.
Yeah.
When we started when we lost everything and we left like big ministry, people thought we were crazy. They thought we had walked away from the Lord. So it wasn't like an exciting. It was a really rough season. But I think that what we have been doing in private with the kids, not for anything else, but just because like the standard is to know him. And so the standard for us, for our children, is to know him. The reason I fight for purity, the reason I fight for Theo to be attentive is because I want the kids to know Jesus.
Yeah.
Like that's everything to us. So from that place, the Lord has lovingly, the Holy Spirit has instructed us. Like I can honestly say we don't have some like thing that we do that's so special, except we have allowed the Lord to take us by the hand as a family and teach us and bring us out of brokenness and show us what is really heavy on his heart, which is family.
One of the things you were just hitting on, Rachel, was purity. I have never seen a family that embraces awkward for the sake of purity like you guys. Like you are willing to have very awkward terminology in your
I
home.
never thought about that.
for the sake. But some people sacrifice purity because they can't embrace awkward.
Yeah.
And you guys have said, no, we're willing to sacrifice awkward in order to have purity in our home. So one of the things I love is like, and I would love for y'all to get into this and maybe even talk about how this came about, is the boys will come to you in the middle of the night with their urges.
Their urges and
Is
surges.
this happening?
The podcast that popped off for them was Teddy's testimony. This ain't nothing new. No. So talk about that. Talk about the urges.
Anyhow, so we realize the importance of communication when it comes to our marriages, when it comes to our workplace, when it comes to anything else. For some reason, when it comes to our children, parents freeze in certain conversations because they don't want to step into areas that are awkward.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody means to sacrifice purity.
I didn't want to talk about stuff
You just don't
because
know,
I didn't
right.
know, like, okay, so what do I, how do I talk about, I mean, I told them everything, the quote unquote birds and the bees. We went through the scriptures. I told them all that. But hey, what about what you feel in the middle of the night when you start getting
Masturbation.
all
of it.
these feelings?
Well, we didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know. So the idea was we found out through our son confessing to us that a while ago he got some urges in the middle of the night and then only did what he thought to do based on those urges.
Right.
And that led him into a place of shame.
Right.
And obviously masturbation, and then it led into trying to capturing images and associating that.
Bondage.
So had we kind of set him up for success beforehand and said, hey, this is probably going to happen to you. No, it's not probably. It will happen to you.
You're telling parents like,
get ahead of it.
You should be introducing your children to this
100%.
terminology. Hey, there's this thing called pornography.
Yeah.
It's probably going to come.
But, I mean, we were like, hey, you're going to get an erection.
Yes.
Like, you're going to feel something down there.
So it started with talking about sex.
We get through everything.
Felt when, we had little Theo and we were young, and talking about sex felt like I did not grow up talking about sex.
Yeah. It's very taboo.
My parents didn't even tell me about my period. I thought I was dying. So literally, this is real. So we were like, okay, Lord, we need the Holy Spirit. We need you to help us. How do we talk about sex? That was a huge thing, the birds and the bees. So we do that. I remember the day it happened. Theo was so great with it. And I'm looking out the window just feeling totally embarrassed, which is so funny to fast forward now the stuff we talk about. That was just like
that was easy.
I mean, if you want to go in, bro, like
let's go in.
Yeah. So what happened was when we fast forward to little Theo going through this time where he's finding himself addicted.
Yes.
He doesn't come to us for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. And when he came to us, we were so devastated, and we were like, the first thing we had to face was what are we doing wrong that our child feels like he can't come to us?
Yeah.
That was number one. I never wanted to talk about pornography or masturbation because I had this an idol of purity.
Well, you also thought if I introduce them to this, it's going to create curiosity.
Curiosity, right?
Yes. But they, we're in a world where it is everywhere.
It's looking for you.
Rampant.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and so our biggest regret was that we just didn't talk to him about what also the enemy will come after your children, and it's nothing to be afraid of, but you need to prepare your kids for what's going to come. We explained to them sexual urges, what is happening to your bodies, not from the devil.
Right.
God gave you those feelings. Sex is a beautiful gift, but what the enemy wants you to do is he wants you to take something that's God-given, which is an urge, a sexual urge, and he wants you to do something about it.
Yeah, pervert.
He wants to create a bondage. And you can tell them.
Yeah, so when the thing is with Theo, our oldest, we kind of had to learn the hard way. Now we get ahead of it. We have a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and we talk to them. It's not just about this is how babies, they're not coming out of your belly button, like that kind of stuff. This isn't about that. This is like,
well, we do age appropriate introductions.
This is, but now I bring my 16-year-old in, which is amazing because from his perspective, he's closer to it than I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
So
good.
years free from masturbation.
Yeah.
Which is also something that people, can say it's fine to do, but it's an absolute bondage. And what happened to our son is not so much, it's such a sinful thing to masturbate, which I 100% believe is.
It is, yes, 100%.
But what the enemy did to him mentally when he was doing that, we were not okay with that. And so what we had to set up was almost this team, basically, where let's say the enemy wants to attack our kid in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Let's say Henry has an urge in the middle of the night that again, that's not the enemy, but he feels like
That's our 12-year-old.
wants to do
Yes.
something about it. He wakes his brother up. And his brother, they come downstairs. They share a room for
They all are
accountability,
in there.
which
Yeah.
is their choice.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
incredible.
Yeah, that's
they
awesome.
chose
I mean,
that.
poor little
That's
Theo.
awesome.
It's tiring for him. But they come downstairs, and what the enemy ends up realizing is you're getting things to come into the light. You're getting two parents that are going to come after you. You're getting the blood of Jesus, which he absolutely hates.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to think he can isolate your kids, and that's his goal is to isolate
Yeah,
them.
he's not going to toss around my kids.
No.
So the
we
moment
go
that he
after
tries
as
to
a
pick a
family.
fight,
I'm in it with him.
well, not only are you not getting just the two of us, but you're getting his brothers as well. This is we're all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is in the middle of the night when these things happen,
So good.
you kind of bring people in, and that's really what you need as a support system.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is involving your kids in there. Like I was saying, when I have Theo involved in these conversations, he's still in the fight.
Yeah.
I haven't, when typically it's Rachel getting the urges from me, and then I have to do this. So
Bless God.
yeah. So, but like,
Beth can totally relate.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like bring them in, and
Tell the
it's-
truth and shame the devil, girl.
But the thing is, too, you got to remember, we're raising warriors, but we're also raising husbands and fathers now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this conversation that I'm having with him today, he will be able to use that, because the only reason I didn't have it with him is because my father didn't have it with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have to take this really, really, really serious, because if we can get ahead of it, and the other side is too, I tell them, I'm like, hey, this is an awesome opportunity for you to get the urges. Like, how can urges be good? I'm like, because you're going to learn how to overcome.
Right.
The Lord's going to give you the ability now to overcome the temptations that are
Yeah.
in front of you.
Yeah.
Just the lusts of the flesh. You'll be able to suppress it. Yeah, self-control. All these things are
learn
wonderful.
how to put the Lord's heart first.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're going to learn really young how to put your wife's heart first.
Yes.
And so Henry, we were talking to him about it. He goes, so I have 6 more years. He's thinking, if he gets married in 6
Right.
years, I have
At
6 more
18.
years of
Yeah.
this. And we're like, well,
Yeah.
Probably more, buddy.
I mean, yeah, that's why my kids
Yeah.
probably want to get married young.
But honestly, I think it's really important, especially for the demographic, that you guys have influence in a lot of what you guys, I'm sure, are dealing with pastorally is this pornography issue.
Oh my gosh.
But it didn't start at the altar.
No.
Yeah, no.
It started in their bedroom at 12.
100%.
And that's the problem, is like we're not even
Yeah.
talking about that. In many
No,
cases
no.
earlier. For me, it was earlier. I didn't know anything different. And so sexually active at a really young age, horrible things that I did. None of those things. I'm so thankful for Jesus. I'm so thankful for what he does to redeem us, to wash us, to set us free, provide us.
Absolutely.
But there is some truth behind it. If you don't know how to slay some giants, unfortunately, you'll be tossed around. You'll be tossed around by that thing, even if you say I do.
Yeah.
And a lot of those
single
marriages.
people problems become married people.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
They do.
Marriage is not the
And if you
answer
look at
to
the
it.
single
Yes.
person's problem today, I can guarantee you trace that thing back to the home.
100.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm telling you, when we're sitting down on a couch for ourselves, and our counselor is looking at me and saying, Theo, what's wrong with you? Why
Yeah.
would you say that? What do you think that way? You can follow it back to Theo in his house when he was 8 years old.
yeah.
Like, that's the thing too, is like what you're doing in this house. That's one of the things I'm super passionate about. There's this idea that men have to be absent in the infancy stages of their children's life because they're providing. Now, I know that many of us have to work, but we also need to understand that your children don't care for the paper that you bring home from your job, and neither do they care about the square footage in their house.
No, not at all.
I want to provide for my family. I want to make sure there's food in the fridge.
Yeah.
I want to make sure there's a roof over my head. But I'm never going to get this time back of being the influential voice in their life to mold them and shape them into the image of Jesus.
Yeah.
Some people have this idea that if I work hard today, I can relax tomorrow. Well, tomorrow they're out of the house.
Right.
And therefore, wherever that vacancy was in the home, it will surface later on in life.
Yeah.
And the only reason that there's a vacancy and or a deficiency in their heart today at 40 is because you weren't present at 10.
Yeah. 100%.
And so we have to get fathers back in the home, tweak your schedule, maybe get 10,000 less than what you'd like.
Yeah.
Maybe consider restructuring your 50-year plan or 10, 20-year plan and begin to prioritize life. How will this yes affect my home? That's the other side too. every yes I give is a yes for my family. They're forced into it. Every no is going to be the same scenario, especially with ministry. When we have this idea that we do everything together.
Yeah.
You guys do everything together.
100%.
So if you're saying yes to a speaking engagement, y'all are saying yes to that speaking engagement.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that that's also something that's really, really, really important, is trying to include your children in every facet of life that you can. Now, I know you can't bring your kids to work with you
Right.
in many scenarios, but you do have the ability to say yes or no to your employer. And I would begin to really assess the current fruit of your leadership in your house by looking at your children, looking at your marriage, and understanding it's not jacked up just because it's jacked up. It's jacked up because the leadership within the home has produced that fruit that you're currently recognizing.
100%.
Assess the
Top
fruit,
down.
own that leadership, own the deficiency, and saying, I'm going to be a part of the solution.
Absolutely.
Time will not change this. Time will actually accentuate it.
It's so true. Before, like, as we're going through this, I don't want to move away from the subject of pornography just yet, just because I think we need parents to understand how big of a deal this is. Like, because it has bigger ramifications than what we think. And this podcast is about to get PG-13 real fast. Okay. But I have this theory and I would like to share it. I honestly think the reason we are seeing a rise in homosexual behavior is due to pornography. Here's why. If you allow your children, not even allow, but you stay negligent to your children watching porn, not only are they learning to objectify women, they are finding an attraction, a sexual attraction that involves a man.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Vice versa.
And vice versa. Yeah. Like girls finding a sexual attraction that involves another woman, right? Not only are they learning like, oh, I like variety. I like different things. You know, we could get specific, but I want to keep it pretty clean. But I really do think that there's an agenda. And if I can say this, a homosexual agenda along with the Trojan horse of pornography. He is introducing more to the palate than just, oh, I like sex, or, oh, okay, that's how you do it. Yeah. It is preference. It is variety. And then it's also, I kind of like it, like with the dude. The dude matters to me. That's a problem. Right. Yeah. Like, who the dude in the video is matters to you. That's a homosexual preference. Yeah. And the kids are picking these up. And, you know, I feel like when you put it that way, good Christian parents all of a sudden see it as a greater issue because of course, they don't want their kids to be sexually addicted, but they sure as heck don't want them finding preferences for the same sex. Yeah. But you are at least complicit in that if you do not address this issue head on. Yeah. And I would love for our children, August and whoever comes next, to learn about things from us. The law first mentioned. I get to decide by mentioning it to my children what their first ideas on these things are. I either say it's in bounds or it's out of bounds. Yeah. And I think that comes by taking that real seriously.
I also think it's important to say that the same way that y'all have dealt with it with little Teddy, I know that also goes back to you being honest and very transparent with him. And it's really hard to tackle a big issue and a bondage with your children when you haven't dealt with yourself and identified it as bondage and identified it as perversion and the assignment that it puts on your marriage, it puts on your purity, it puts on your integrity, and then therefore the authority to speak on it and get others free like your children. So
come on.
What we brought, again, if your understanding of sexual intercourse is based upon what you have seen prior to your moment to consummate your marriage, the only thing you're going to know to do is what you've seen. It's in the aspect of, like you said, there's an incredible principle in there first mentioned, but it's also the aspect of illustration. What we are submersed in the illustrations that we find ourselves surrounded by, we will mimic. Yeah. Isn't it crazy with August? You look and be like, oh my gosh, he's doing, think about it. What is he saying? What does he do? Only what you say and what you do. Mm-hmm. If you trapped him in a room right now for his upbringing and he had no human interaction, he would not be able to say what he's currently saying and do what he's currently doing. Right. He would not know that. That's not the natural side of things. what is natural is that you look and you mimic. This is why it's important for us in our house where we keep everything holy and pure. I could care less. It came down to when I found out my son was looking at this stuff, I asked him, I said, how did you find this? He said, the Switch. I said, what?
Oh, wow.
Through the Nintendo Switch? He's like, yeah, it's like anime, like cartoon stuff, like whatever it is. I said, you got to be kidding me. Well, the first thing we did was we began to realize, wait, I threw devices in front of my children because we needed some silence. We needed some mom, and we were stressed out. We just, stare at this thing for a little bit, and we just need to have a conversation. So the home was quiet, but at the same time, there was bondage, and my child was being tossed around by the enemy. Now your home might be a bit louder and a bit more chaotic, but it's freedom. So the Lord told me the sound of chaos to you is the sound of freedom to me.
Wow.
Pardon the noise. It's the sound of freedom.
100%.
Have you heard
Love
about
it.
that?
No.
That whole
No.
there's a sign. Like there was this. This is an incredible story, and I'm gonna give it the Keenan Clark version. There's like this airstrip, and it was right next to this neighborhood, and like military planes are taking off every day. And the people in the residential started getting mad, and they complained at the U.S. government. So they put a sign right by the airstrip that says, "Pardon the noise. It's the sound of freedom."
Wow.
Imagine love.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
pardon.
yeah.
You need a sign in your house that says, "Pardon the noise." It's the
I
sound.
absolutely
I love
love
that.
Yeah.
But so
That's cool.
with that being said, it's like we began to put things in place that set our children up for success.
Yeah.
Okay,
And we did not do this based on what the world was telling us to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the key too.
yeah.
To speak to what you're talking about, the perversion side of things, the enemy is the king of perversion.
Yeah.
And so I had to grow up and get a backbone and stop walking around like nervous and afraid and awkward. Oh my gosh, what's my kid looking at? I had to like get knowledgeable about it. And I had read an article actually where there is such an agenda because the thing I was beginning to see is that it's cartoon, it's like anime, and it's there's animals involved, and it's basically grooming kids to be completely sexually confused.
100%.
And so when I got a hold of what my son had just started to dabble in, I realized then and there that the enemy was not after just my son to be masturbating. He was absolutely after his identity, his future, the generations after Theo, the generations see parents and even spouses. We talk to couples all the time, and they're sitting in one spouse is addicted to pornography and the other one's a little laid back about it because at least they're not cheating with a person. It's just it's an agenda of the enemy, and it's so demonic. And again, this is about what it does mentally to a child, what it does mentally to a husband and to a wife, to anybody. And it's that serious. It's like an actual agenda where the enemy wants to take out the next generation.
Yeah.
And so for us, we had to pull the plug on everything. And the Holy
y'all got rid
Spirit,
of the
the Holy
devices,
Spirit had been
Bro,
speaking to me for about a year.
Until I got rid of them.
Wow.
The devices of the enemy.
Yeah, and I had a
Satan.
full blown
It was
fight on
real.
my hands with Theo,
Oh, there was a
with all the
detox, too.
kids.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm telling you, this stuff's not
I made
normal.
some money
I'm
off of
feeling
that.
in
You
my
made it.
gut, this is not
good.
for us to have in our family. And Theo was like, it's not a big deal. It's, it's just a switch.
Well, I played Madden and stuff like that, bro. I was back to Tecmo Bowl way before y'all even know anything about it, with actual Super Mario, Tecmo Bowl, Nintendo, like the original Nintendo. So like I had always played it, and
Yeah,
for me,
me
I never
too.
correlated
Right.
playing
I don't think it was
Sega
the same as what's
to
happening now.
that. Like that wasn't there, and so but now it is.
Yeah.
And what we decided, we're like, all right, every single bridge, I want to know whatever bridge the enemy's been traveling on, we're blowing that thing up.
Yeah.
And so we threw out. A buddy of mine owns an eBay company. I said, hey, bro, I need to sell every single device I have, and we did that. And then we began to realize, hey, no TVs in your bedroom.
Yeah, we don't need this that bad. Is
No
what we
phones.
realized.
We took Theo's phone away because that's
Yeah.
where it all started.
Yeah.
So
Freedom
Yeah.
is not free. There is a cost to walking in personal freedom, but then also freedom as a family.
Yeah.
And like it's okay. Like we have these ideas, and I have had these I have had conversation after conversation after conversation with young guys who I'm like, why do you see a smartphone as more of a necessity than sexual purity is.
Yeah, get a flip.
Like get a flip phone,
Yeah.
get a carrier pigeon.
Yeah.
I don't know what you got to
Yeah.
do. A smoke signal. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what you got to do.
You don't
But
realize
there's an
when you're in
alternative.
it. It's like people
Well,
don't realize.
They don't want to be a social pariah. They don't want to be the social outcast. They don't want to be the weird guy. And then people are asking, why do you have a flip phone?
But we don't understand the word consecration means to be set apart.
Exactly.
So when we do things that are set
Yeah.
apart from the world, that's not a bad thing. That's
No,
a great
it's a
thing.
good thing.
So we want to look different. We want to do things different. We want the conversations with people who are struggling
Yeah.
to find out and be like, hey, how did you guys get here? And be like,
Yes.
well, we actually had to do these things.
You
They
have to do the
totally
work.
contradict
There are
what the world is
tangible
saying.
Hold the
Yeah,
standard.
100%.
Yeah, it's not just a lot of people like just boil it down to like just believe these certain things.
Yeah.
Like get in the mirror and say these certain things to yourself. Like
Yeah.
confess that you are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. I agree with that.
Oh, sure.
I think our confession is important. But
Yeah.
there also is something that's just like downright practical about
Yeah.
I don't let X, Y, and Z into the house. So we are obviously dealing heavily with the subject of pornography in this podcast. And I did not want to just hit the subject and not hand you some practical tools on how to overcome this pandemic, honestly, amongst our generation. As a pastor, I have helped so many people get free from the clutches of pornography. People who were barely dabbling in it to people who were severely, deeply involved. People who ultimately it eventually cost them their marriage, who today are walking completely porn free. And one of the tools that I have used to help so many people walk free of pornography is a tool by the name of Covenant Eyes. Covenant Eyes is an incredible software that you can upload on your phone. You create an account and it will flag someone you trust. They call them an ally, and it will let them know if there's ever any pornographic activity on your phone. I honestly think pornography is something that you cannot beat alone. It's something you fall into typically alone, but it is not something that you can get out of alone. And if you are ready to no longer continue to be bullied by pornography, continue to be bullied by an addiction, it's time to download Covenant Eyes. And the kind people at Covenant Eyes have extended to us a 30-day free trial. If you click the link in the description of this video, it will take you to the Covenant Eyes platform, and you can use the code Keenan30 for 30 days free. I'm telling you, I believe in this software. I've helped so many people. I am several people's allies. Whether you are a man or a woman, the devil is no respecter of gender, no respecter of persons. It's time for you to walk free of pornography. Download Covenant Eyes, use the code Keenan30, and let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Within a few weeks of us taking those things away from the
longest
boys,
few weeks of our life.
it was really brutal at first. You could just see an absolute detox happening, but it was within like weeks where freedom started to come. Like the kids,
Bro, I
Theo
them playing
started
board games.
coming to us
I've never
about
thought
everything.
they would ever want to play board games.
Yeah,
remember?
board games became really
Wow.
exciting.
And they started
for them.
talking to each other.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
why they're actually in the room. It's not just accountability, but at
Right.
night, at night it's amazing. We'll sit literally in the hallway and sometimes just cry. They'll be praying over each other.
let's
They'll
go.
be saying, "Hey, Theo, I repent today for being rude to you." And they'll be praying in the spirit. They'll be worshiping. They'll be releasing words over each other.
Let's go.
All of this stuff is happening in their bedroom.
Yeah.
And before, when Theo was doing what he was doing, he wanted to be separated from his brothers.
Yep.
And it was quiet. But that's the whole point. I have a short period of time before I hand them over to a woman. I want that wife, that our daughter, man, that feels amazing to say. I wish I want
we need one of
our
those.
daughter to be able to know,
She's
hey, we've done everything we could to present to you a man that will care for you, a
Yeah.
man of purity who loves
Yeah.
God and will also reveal God to both you and your children.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things I think that we're missing out on. It's like you will give an account. In my opinion, we're going to stand before the Lord, and you are going to give an account on how did you steward your family, how
Yeah.
did you steward your marriage,
It's absolutely
and how did you steward your children.
It's absolutely
And
true.
It's we're conditioned to think inconvenience is something that I don't really believe it is.
Yeah.
So we have to pour into our kids. We have to fight for our children. There's nothing can replace time. And that's the issue we're running into is everybody's running so fast. We get asked all the time, how do you get your kids to be like that? Literally so much time. so much effort, so many hours of just having to die to ourselves to be there
100%.
for our kids. And if we don't fight for our kids, if we don't remove these things while we can, these addictions will go on from generation to generation. And that was a lot of, there were nights in the beginning when Theo was walking out his freedom.
Wow.
Where he had to come down, he would come downstairs and get Theo, and Theo would spend the night on the couch with him. I think I had
think it was 3
Levi,
months.
I
Yeah,
had
you were telling
birthed
us about
Levi,
this,
and
yeah.
Theo spent the night on the couch for 3 months.
I said, what's the longest time frame you've ever gone without masturbating? And he said it was like 20 days or something like that. I said, all right, we're going 20 days together and not leaving my side. And we got to 21 and I was like, how's that feel? And the fact was, he goes, that was easy. It was easy because his dad was by his side.
Yeah.
He kept
The thing
his
is
sweet,
that-
he
that-
made him keep his hands over the
Yeah,
blanket.
he did. And I said, we changed the way we sleep. And I said,
Like,
bro,
listen, bro,
I'm like,
you're-
bro,
you-
listen,
it
here's the
was-
deal.
it
If you
got
want to be
real.
real, if I'm sleeping next to you on that couch, there will be none of that.
Yeah.
So that's just going to be one way to make sure that never happens. Because if I wake up and
I'm
I see
watching
anything
you,
of the sort
bro.
happening, it's on, bro. You're going to get
It's on.
It's on. Yeah. But
Lord have mercy.
But with that whole thing, it's like I
Honey,
want
we
I
love
want to
you.
talk to those those fathers, because I sense in my spirit like
Yes.
this is the question. I have to take care of my family. I have to travel. I have to do this. You're right. You have to. But you got to figure out what's most important.
Yes.
And typically the things that are most important in life, we build life around. So if you have been accustomed to believing your job is most important, then of course you're going to have to try to fit your marriage and your children in wherever there's margin. But if your children and your family are the most important, then you have to figure out how to fit your job into that. And so it's an inside out perspective as opposed to an outside in perspective.
Yeah.
So for us, I can honestly say this. We work really hard. We do whatever it is that we can do because we want the Lord to know clean hands and a pure heart. We're not slothful. We're diligent to steward what God has given us. But I could be making a lot more money than I'm making, but I would also be absent from being able to raise my children the way I would want them to be raised and to support my wife the way she needs to support. I think we have to get to the point to where we realize what's enough monetarily.
Yeah.
And if you have the ability, maybe you own your own company, set your own schedule.
Yeah.
And build it around your family, build it around time with your wife. If you work for a company that requires more of your time, then do whatever it is you have to do. But when you're home, be home.
Yeah.
And don't let your children feel like they're getting the scraps. And that's
Right.
really what changed my life, because I was doing the right thing, quote unquote, in ministry, but I was coming home with the scraps for my kids, giving the best to a congregation of strangers.
Right.
And so I was doing the right thing, I thought, but I did it from the wrong place. It was absolutely the wrong thing, because I need my kids to know that in what we do, what we all do here, in the name of Jesus, we obviously are serving the Lord.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to ever feel that saying yes to Jesus adds a depleted dad to them.
Right.
They have to add a stronger dad to them. The other side is, if you want your children to be, let's say you feel like your family's in business and those kinds of things, and you want them to be successful in business. If you don't prioritize and put business in its proper place, they're never going to want to be a part of anything you're doing.
Yeah.
That goes for ministry too. So if I
Yes.
want them to be a part of the ministry and serve Jesus, I want them to be a part of business and a successor in that plan based upon their understanding of their priority in your eyes will basically make the decision for them as to whether or not they're going to want to follow in your footsteps.
100%.
It will never make sense to a child to feel neglected. It will never make sense to a wife to feel deprived. And the reason it doesn't make sense is because the Lord dropped that in our heart. He created us in that way because it doesn't make sense for us to not spend time with him. It doesn't make sense for us to ever neglect him. And as a result of that, he has shared that with us so that we can understand, hey, this isn't just a feeling that I'm getting just because it's the right feeling. He's putting that in us because he wants us to prioritize our home. He wants us to prioritize our children and our marriage. It is the greatest institution in the earth. But I do want certain people who have to work to understand, I know how difficult it can be, but when you're home, be home.
Yeah, and we don't get it right all the time either. This is a thing, we constantly live in a place where we're having to revisit something, and usually in our home at least, it's me. I will start to pick up on the temperature of our home something's not adding up, something's not right. We're going at it more, we're arguing more, there's less unity. That usually means we need to come back to the table and find out where are we putting more into the externals. Like
Every time it's that.
It's every time.
For
Like,
us,
where
it
do we
is.
need to set up
Yeah.
more of a calendar? We're not
Yeah.
being intentional with our kids. We're not being intentional with Theo. Theo needs time alone.
Yep.
Henry needs time alone. It's
On the
it's a
phone too
lot.
much.
It costs
Yeah.
you. It will cost you everything. It's just the way it is. You cannot get the fruit without it costing you something, but it is so worth
Absolutely.
it. And God is so generational that it's everything to him.
Yeah.
And so we have to revisit that place every month.
Right. And right now, the two of you are, well, your whole family is, but the two of you are practically in the middle of a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the middle of a massive project. I mean, you are acquiring a multiple $1 million property. You're having to talk to soil scientists.
Yeah,
I mean,
Never knew
so,
this stuff.
but
Our
one
family
of the-
theory is being currently tested.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
No, for sure.
Yes.
But one of the things that I love is you guys, as you guys were trying to steward what the Lord is doing and make sure that you're being diligent, like you've said, you recognize that, hey, things are starting to slip. Like the boys are staying up too late. They're not getting enough sleep.
Yep.
Even practical, like they're not like getting into sin,
Yeah,
but they're
no,
just
no,
not getting like
course.
what
Yeah.
their body physically needs.
Yeah.
And so you have had to say, hey, my phone is off and I'm unavailable at a certain time of night and not available until a certain time in the morning. The kids are going to bed. I mean, we've been over to your house and you say, hey, the kids are going to bed at 8:30 and we've said
going
good
to
night.
bed.
Yeah, 8:20.
We'll see you on next
So
time.
we could go. So
Like,
we could honor
our
that
sad
because we
goodbyes.
we are sad.
Yeah.
We're in this for the long haul with y'all.
We found a cadence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we didn't have that. So when we unplugged from ministry for almost the 2 years, we found the cadence that God had created for our family to be at its best.
It was slow.
Yeah, it was much slower than what we were accustomed to. But now, with all the decisions that we have to make, I have to make sure we protect that cadence.
Yeah.
Because I refuse to make sure all of these things are done the way they quote unquote need to be done, and then my family's left floundering. I can't do that. So I've learned if someone calls me at 6 o'clock at night, I'll call them tomorrow when I pick up at 10. Like it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
I think that's something too that we also need to understand is it's gonna be okay to get to it tomorrow. You know what I mean?
You
Like
had to kind of grow into that though.
And that
because
doesn't come
being
natural.
like Jesus is a little bit can be hero syndrome for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very
you
and
have
was
a savior
hero syndrome.
complex.
Yeah.
I'm like,
can-
listen, I need you to be. If you're going to be Jesus, you need to be Jesus here too.
Well,
Yeah.
like I said, I realized for me, I was so drawn to the externals of making sure that I was a good pastor.
Right.
And I was never taught that a good pastor ever says no,
Yeah.
right? Until you realize that's just garbage. Jesus says no all the time. He says yes to things and no to things, and that's what makes life healthy. You have to know what to say no to and what to say yes to.
Yeah.
And so for us and our families, we have to make sure that we understand this is kind of the way we operate. You got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And the way we figure that out isn't by you assuming this is how I'm going to lead my home as a husband. It's how do we do this? What God has called us to, how do we do this from the right place? We get together, we bring the kids in it. We ask the kids kind of what they think. We're going on.
from that.
Yeah, y'all are.
This is a family ordeal. Again, in that process of inclusion, they feel a part of it, so they'll be more respectful to it. Hey,
Yeah.
I am going to go to bed at 8:30.
Right.
This isn't going to be a fight. The reason that we're doing that is because we all decided, hey, we need to make sure we're waking up early.
Teach
We're
them to be
missing our time
selfless
with
too.
God.
Like
all that.
you want mommy, they call him Baba, it's dad in Greek. But we've had that conversation probably just last night. Do you want mommy and Baba to have a healthy marriage? We need time away from you guys. We
Yeah.
have decided to live in a way where we're constantly pouring out, and we love that. You're not in school. You're homeschooling with us. We're with you 24/7.
Yeah.
But that comes with like they have this picture that we are at. We're available all the time, and so we even have to set a boundary of like you're going to bed because we need time, and they recognize they want health in their marriage, and so they're like, let's go to bed, mommy and Baba. We want mommy and Baba to be able to love each other, watch a movie together. They get it. But it's like we actually learned from our old church, from Pastor Landon and them, how to have healthy boundaries in ministry.
Yeah.
Where we really had to realize Jesus had 12 that he gathered around his table. He had 3 that he opened up to. So, and he left to go be with the Father alone often. And that's how we've kind of tried to live. And it's been difficult, but we've had to ask the Lord, okay, who are we called to outside of our family? And we want our boys to learn that they need to be inconvenienced. That's what ministry looks like, selflessness. Like we might want a night alone, but if Keenan and Beth, who we feel called to, and we've prayed about that relationship, we're willing to say, you know what, we can put ourselves aside. They need us tonight. And the kids get that too. We do it as a family.
Yeah.
And so just learning those healthy boundaries, I think it's so good for relationships in general.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You said Baba is dad in Greek.
Yeah.
What's Keenan in Greek?
Keenan.
Keenan.
None.
Oh my God.
Keenan.
I've been waiting.
Yeah, Keenan.
You said it's Baba in Greek. I'm like, I'm going to ask.
Keenan.
Like, what's Keenan?
Yeah.
Keenan.
Keenan.
Yeah, we did that the other night at the dinner table. But as I was talking about the massive undertaking that y'all are in,
I feel like we're hitting like 50 million subjects.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
You have a
And
lot
the
of
people,
content. You have a lot of stuff to
the
check.
people are loving it. So as we're talking about this massive undertaking, it's called 10 School.
Okay, well, we have, so A Place for Family is the ministry.
Is the ministry.
So A Place for Family is acquiring 52 acres in Colombia.
Which is just right up the road.
Tennessee.
right up the road, right?
In Tennessee, not Columbia, like Columbia.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Columbia,
Colombia.
Tennessee. Colombia.
Colombia.
Oh, no.
Great coffee.
Yeah. So within A Place for Family, we have 10 School.
Yes.
10 School is a 3-month life-on-life discipleship intensive where we prioritize really two things: teaching people how to tend to the heart of Jesus and tend to the heart of their home.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we believe that bringing people in close to a living room setting. So this isn't like and I don't mean, by no means am I trying to demean what is currently out there, because it's all needed. We need
Yeah, no, you're great.
evangelism schools, everything. But for us, we are trying to create something that you can apply in your home thereafter. So we want the setting to be a living room, bringing you in close. We want the setting to be the dinner table, teaching you that the most important piece of furniture in the earth is not a pulpit. It is the dinner table. And so for us, we felt like not only giving content that would teach you how to live life from the inside out, but also creating an atmosphere of illustration that you can apply to your home by prioritizing your living room, how to gather your family around the table. And we're going to do this for 3 months, life on life. And we're bringing people in really close, which we've never really done before. We've always had kind of like this piece of furniture that separates us from the people, which is known as the pulpit. But we're kind of putting the pulpit to the side. We're going to put the dinner table at the center, and we're going to gather people around the table and try to pour into them and give them what we wish someone would have given us. Wow. So that's for singles who are interested in being married. Right. And that's for married couples who are interested in growing in their relationship.
Yeah. And I would say this, like, this is not free. No. This is an investment in your family. And if you are going to invest anywhere, investing in the kingdom of God and in your family are the two places you ought to be the most eager to push your money. And this is both. In one-stop shop. And so I would say to anyone who is like, well, I don't know if like we could, scrounge up the finances, or if you've got to sell Krispy Kreme donuts as a fundraiser, if you got whatever you got to do, believe God for this, because I genuinely do believe if you are in any way feeling that inclination, hey, I think our family should do this. I think maybe this is for us. Even if you live nowhere near Tennessee, it may be time to just take a 3-month sabbatical, come to Columbia, Tennessee, and get immersed in this. Like I know Beth and I can speak to just the dinners we have had at your home. I mean, we have literally lived here to a degree. Every time we would come to visit, we'd stay here. But just those dinners have shaped the way we do dinner in our home. Last night, we sat at the dinner table. We pull August high chair up to the table. We put on this, playlist on the TV. It's crazy. And I would love to talk the Italian playlist. It's crazy. Even when
it's always
we've
Italian
never
night.
eaten Italian food
I know.
while listening to that
Because of
playlist.
Keenan Clark.
I don't like it.
That started as
Child
me being a
palate.
tired mom and wanting my table to feel special. So it was like Sam's Club lasagna, but on like a nice platter, and then Italian music. And the kids
Italian,
were like,
it's honestly weird how just that little like hour-long playlist really does change the vibe.
It really does.
Like when you're just listening to forks and knives and plates clinking
chomping
and trying to have
smacking. No.
putting a little bit of filler music on in the background just changes, and it kind of just like as soon as we turn it on, I start like dancing.
Get you going.
It kind of just does.
Just
So-
go ahead, get up and give us a little.
you want
You come out a
only a
shot.
part of
Please
me. I
don't.
don't want the shot would be in the shot. The camera's too low, but my hips don't lie. But anyway, and that's not.
I
a
hope
lie.
we can recover from this right now.
But for real, just putting that simple music on has
Yeah.
like changed the whole vibe, and then it kind of helps you be like, hey, the playlist isn't done, so dinner's not done. Like to me, like it's like it kind of is like, hey, we're not done until this is like I got.
I love that you're doing that from like this stage.
Yeah.
August. Like that is.
He won't know the
special.
difference.
We bring him right up to
That's
the
special to
table.
me.
He throws all
his food on the floor.
and
Yep.
Oh,
Sorry, I
just
hit you.
do our highs and lows.
Yeah, we do our highs and
and
lows. Some days it's like I'm scared to because I'm like, Beth
Let's
was
not
frustrated
remind
with
her
me.
of
Like
that.
it's
My
gonna be a ton
lows,
of lows.
how rude you are. No.
The thing is like even with like those little things with highs and lows, you're cultivating communication. You're cultivating what's
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
And in that too, if you think of a
a
table, you
routine for the
have to
kids to
look
look
at
forward
people, right? And I think there's a lot of families that just aren't looking at each other.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of ships passing, moving in different directions. Hey, I'm going to eat in this room. You eat in that room without recognizing it. Listen, one of the prayers that Jesus prayed prior to his ascension was the fact, Father, make them one as we are one. It's really impossible to try to be in unity when you are living separate lives.
It's so true.
So the dinner table literally gathers everyone around it. It allows you to create a sense of conversation, have some wonderful food, but I really do believe it's the rendezvous point that every family must prioritize.
And the
'Cause
kids,
it
the
gathers
kids
you.
expect it. It's a routine that they love highs and lows, and
love it.
no exaggeration.
They do.
Their high almost every time
Is dinner.
is dinner.
Yeah.
Every time.
Every single time.
And if my phone makes its way to the table, they call me out on it. They're
no,
like,
girl.
no,
They'll say
phone in the pot. It's like we put it in like a pot somewhere else. But yeah.
One of the things that we've done, because like the highs and lows is great, but it doesn't always just like, it's not a communication cure all for the whole dinner, right? Like it's like, okay, we covered our highs and lows,
lunch,
but like, what are we going to talk about
good.
next?
It's a lunch.
And sometimes like when you're like, we work kind of together. I mean, we live together. I'm at home a lot. Like I work out of home. We're talking all the time. So it's like, well, what are we going to talk about? You know what I mean? We bought this like intimacy deck of cards that have questions on it.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
we did like we had an evening where we were just asking each other those questions.
Yeah.
Some of them are like really spicy.
I love it.
And then some
Yeah.
of the, you kind of have to
Throw
like,
the red ones out, honestly.
they're kind
Yeah.
of fun.
No, those
kinda
that
fun.
Keenan likes that.
They're
We
fun.
like the red ones.
spicy.
I like
yeah.
the red.
Subject.
The red.
Yeah. We're keeping the red
red
ones.
I won't tell you which
Theo
ones I
makes
like,
his
but I
own
like the red.
cards.
Yeah.
Some
Spicy
of it
cards.
I like because she has to answer it. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I wonder what like your answer for
I
this is.
love that.
But then there are
Love
other
spice.
ones like of like just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
sometimes you just need something to poke at those buttons
Yeah.
to make those things just come out. And so it was fun for us.
One of the things that I didn't realize for me, because I was a vault when I first met Rach, I didn't talk. I didn't talk because, again, I never saw it prioritized. The other side is I had been abused when I was younger.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that the abuse has silenced me. So I didn't want to share what happened to me with anyone. So I never told anyone in my entire life until 7 years into my marriage, preaching the gospel. I never told anyone. And I always had this idea, wait, I don't need to talk about this. It happened to me. I understand confessing sin, but this wasn't something that I did.
Okay.
And so in that whole thing, I didn't realize that it created this individual who never processed his emotions, never talked through things. And so when I got married, she was wanting to know, how are you feeling? What's going on? I'm like, I'm great. I'm good.
Like,
Kinda
I don't do small talk, and I'd be like,
one-liners.
what is up with this guy? I'm like,
Yeah.
so tell me your insecurities. He's like, I don't have any.
I literally said, I don't have any. That's no joke.
I should have.
said
I
that?
should have known that was
when
a
she
red
goes, so what are your
flag.
insecurities? I'm like, I literally believed in my head, I don't have any. The reason I said that is because I had so guarded that wound
Dang.
Yeah.
that I
he was
never
locked up.
wanted to assume that I had anything broken on the inside of me, because then I would have to address it. So I lived as though it didn't exist until I began to see my behavior in life.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly destructive. And it all pointed back to that area that was broken. So with that being said, I didn't realize that horrific act in my life, in that broken place, created my lack of communication.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't a character trait of mine, because
Yeah.
it's not
Oh,
natural
really
to
good.
not talk.
Right.
So we need to understand that some wives are looking and say, my husband just doesn't talk. No, that's not natural, because God created us to commune, to
Yes.
talk. This is, we receive from him. He is the word of God. He loves communicating. He loves to hear from us. We love to hear from him.
That's really
It
good.
is not natural for humanity to not talk. So when we aren't talking, something's off. Now, you might have adopted it as your personality trait, but the fact is, I guarantee you that personality trait came from an area of deficiency.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, the dinner table, even for me at this stage in the game, is therapeutic, because it forces me to flush things out authentically.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I'm now giving my children an alternative illustration than I had before, and now they don't shut up. And so it's a good thing
You're
sometimes.
very chatty.
So with this undertaking that you guys are endeavoring right now, it is acquiring land. Like you've already mentioned, A Place for Family is acquiring land.
Yes.
Tend School is kind of a subdivision, sub-ministry underneath the umbrella of A Place for Family.
Sure.
It is the live-in intensive, coming around the table. And if somebody wants to be involved in that, if you want to be involved in that, I would say get in now. Get in on the grassroots level. I honestly think there's something special about being in the inaugural group.
Yeah.
When does it start?
So you can get as much information as you want from 10school.org.
10school.org.
Yeah,
We'll
10school.org.
have that linked below.
Yeah, all
and-
that's in the description below the podcast.
Yeah,
If you're
and
on
so we'll
YouTube.
have we start the
September
thing is this
3rd
it's
through
it's
November
yeah
23rd.
September 3rd through November 23rd, but we are so you can apply.
Yeah.
We're receiving applications, but we're also the process is slow, prayerful, thought out.
Right.
Because remember, this isn't just us trying to fill a room with a certain
No,
amount. We
not
actually
at
are
all.
trying to keep it small, keep it
It is
intimate.
limited space.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
limited space.
Yeah, and so we want this to be as raw and as open as we possibly can, as far as an atmosphere is concerned to create. But at the same time, we also want to get to know everyone.
Yeah.
We really want them to get to know us, and we want to get to know them. And it's really hard to do in a classroom. And so we feel like as many people as we can fit around our table and in our living room, that will kind of be the numeric of the student body.
Absolutely.
But I
really
would
big
start,
table.
yeah, a really big table. We have a really big table, but I would enroll now. If you're interested, I would do
Don't
it now because
hesitate.
we're probably going to shut it.
And it
down
is an
pretty soon.
extensive process with the way we do it, just so that there's safety. It's such a vulnerable space, and the way we're doing it is very close proximity. And so the way we kind of vet people is we have some real honest, raw conversations.
Yeah.
We talk about some pretty heavy things, but
yeah, and people are
it's been really
already getting
fruitful.
freedom.
Yeah.
Before they've even set foot. I mean, I know of people personally who have called you on the phone and said, "Hey, here's what I'm going through," and they haven't even shown up yet.
Yeah, it's
to
wild.
be a part of the school.
So
I mean, I
happy.
love that the Lord is already using just the relationship and like
we
just
have
the
wept
preparation.
through like the students that we have coming already.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
cry all the time about
We're
it.
like, Lord, that you would trust us to steward these people that you're sending. And the people that are hungry to be a part of something like this, there's so much purity in it because it's not really a glamorous like thing. It's really like getting into the nitty gritty of like family and the inside of your heart. And it takes a lot to do that. And so the people that God is sending are really, really special. And I'm even seeing
amazing.
the piecing together of like different couples coming or even singles. And like none of them have met yet. And it's just really exciting, like
Yeah.
from our point of view, when we talk to each of them to see like, oh my gosh, these people are gonna like love each
I
other.
I wonder the pain that could have been prevented if this resource was around when we first got married.
100%.
So there's this whole idea that premarital counseling is vital. It's necessary.
yes.
But like I said, for those of us who never had a healthy upbringing to emulate,
Yeah.
it's been very hard to read, something in a book and try to apply it to our life. I feel like we'll be able to cast some illustrations that will create an opportunity for people to receive what is necessary to make family a priority.
Yeah.
And so we're really, really excited to bring people in, love on them, and hopefully watch them do greater things than we could have ever done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is something Beth and I have quite literally put our skin in the game. This is something we are helping fund on the level at which our family can. We have sown personally into this ministry. And I would encourage you, this is some of the best soil you could ever sow into, not just by attending, but literally, even if it's not a place where you're like, hey, I don't necessarily feel the Lord is leading us to be a part of the intensive, but we can allocate resources to this. There's a link in the description below this video to where you can become a partner with A Place for Family. You can even specifically partner with 10 School by scholarshiping some people to go, whether that's a single person or maybe even a young couple who wants to be a part of this. Not even a young couple, couples in general. I mean, I believe that there are going to be some older couples who are like, hey,
We've been praying for
we
that.
we want the rest of our lives. We may have given,
It's
you
not
know,
too late.
It's not too
Yes.
late. And we want to do it right from this day forward.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about from this day forward. I can't do anything about what has been, but I can let what has been not infect what will be.
That's right.
And this is some of the best soil to give. Please, I'm urging you, whatever you can, give to this endeavor, give to this mission. Acquiring the land is just the beginning. There's so much that goes into this, and God is 100% behind it. We could name names about people who are just somehow organically hearing about this. Like, I mean, people who have a massive footprint in ministry world are hearing about what you guys are doing, and I'm blown away. And so the thing is no matter who it is that says something, your response is the same every time. From the people who, their household names, to people who no one would know their name, you guys are the same. Welcome to the table. Get around here. We want to invest in you. And Beth and I are personally going to be a part of 10 School in any way we possibly can and
Faces
are allowed to be.
there.
So we're going to be there.
We'll be running around.
We're going to be there.
The thing is, too, we're not mentioning any names for the sole purpose that we don't want people prioritizing this for the wrong reason.
No, absolutely not.
And the cool thing is, though, you know, the proximity of it will bring us in closer to people that we typically aren't able to get too close to. But at the same time, the gauge as to who comes in to pour into the student body has nothing to do with public influence.
Right.
We are looking in the same way God looks at Timothy and he says, hey, in order for you to stand here and preach the gospel publicly, I need to make sure you're standing in a healthy place privately.
Yeah.
God looks inside before he endorses whatever we think. Because people are being misled by giftings and all these things.
Yeah.
So I could care less how many people fill a room to listen to what you have to say.
Yep.
We're more interested in your family wanting to fill the living room that they call home.
Right.
And we've seen on the other side, people be able to pack certain rooms with a large amount of people, but their family doesn't want to gather in the living room. They don't want to be around the table. And we've learned from that. We don't want that for our family and or anyone else. So the people who are coming to speak into the student body, we look at their life on the inside and we say, hey, they might not be perfect. We're not perfect, but there's something that they're after, something they're doing right.
Yeah.
Their children, reflect the image of Jesus. Their marriage reflects the image of Jesus. That is what we want to share. So
absolutely,
when they're coming in to teach, they're like, hey, what do we talk about? And the content is any and all things that are that come from the four walls of your house. How to fight right, budgeting, whatever it might be, finances, how to tend to the heart of Jesus privately, how to get over, confrontation, how to raise your children, how to, whatever it is, the things that happen on the inside of the home that you don't learn at Bible college.
Yeah.
We want to provide people an opportunity to learn from others so that we can make our homes more vibrant.
Absolutely. This is it. This is the place. This is the time. Get in while you can. Again, spots are limited. There's only a certain number that you guys are going to be allowed to be a part of this inaugural class. So get in while you can. What I'm trying to say is, don't get cold feet. If you're feeling the Lord tugging at you, get in now. The Lord may be tugging at you now, but if you don't act, God will give your spot to somebody else. So make sure that you're getting in on this thing.
Let's go.
It's true.
We have a couple moving from Sweden.
Sweden?
Wow.
Like, that's why we're
Holy
weeping.
smokes.
We're like, wow.
And they're coming from Sweden.
Precious
They've
couple.
been missionaries all over, and they just said, they're like, we've done a lot of things for the Lord, but we really haven't done much for our family, like our marriage. And so now we're tired. We're always pouring out, but we really don't have anyone pouring in.
A little boy of about August 8th,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah. And so just the character and the integrity associated to that, to say, hey, let's put life on pause for a moment so that we can acquire something that will last a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's the same thing too, to communicate if anything's stirring in your heart.
Amen.
We have another beautiful couple that are closer to our age, maybe a little older, with teenagers.
Yeah.
And
And we have singles.
they're weeping, just saying, they're just hungry they want to make sure that they have longevity in their home, and they want to do it right. And it's like, it's just so beautiful to hear like somebody, well, first of all, the humility that it takes at that stage to be like, you know what, let's just have a reset. And that's what we're hungry to provide, that for people who, it's not, like you said, it's not too late. And I wish that when we lost everything, I just wish that, thank God that the Lord really literally nursed us back to life to come back to ministry. We probably never would have because we were so broken. But that's why we're hungry to create that space for people to realize that it isn't too late and you can have a fresh start. And that's
And how like God to bring generations. In
Got
the
to.
picture.
Yeah. A bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. And so I don't care where you're at in regards to, your marriage could be on the brink of ruin. this may be exactly what you need. Instead of paying for a divorce, pay for this. Like, I feel that strong.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Instead of paying a lawyer, pay to come bring your family and sit at this table and watch what the Lord will do. Yeah. You guys are brutally honest, but incredibly compassionate and loving. I mean, like, that's one of the reasons why we trust you with the nucleus of our family. We allow you guys to speak in. So thank you guys for being on the pod today. Love you guys so much. Hey, follow A Place for Family on Instagram. Check out their YouTube channel. Go and listen to Teddy's testimony, Ted and Ted Talks. Come on, Ted and Ted Talks. Shameless plug. And we love you guys. We'll see you so much on the next episode. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with somebody who needs it. We'll see you next time.